leg extension. Starting with Mark, who will be demonstrating from our first progression, seated in the chair. So he's upright. He is going to alternate, just taking a little lift up, lengthening, and then lowering down. So right here, his hands are on his thighs. Your students may feel more secure if they take their hands and just have a light hold on their chair. Now, what's important here is that the hips stay nice and level. So if Mark were to pick his foot up too much, which is what a lot of students do, they pick their feet way up and their hips start rocking side to side, that can torque the spine and they can get injured. So we want to keep their hips level, cue them just to come up like an inch off the ground and then to straighten their leg and then come back down. And then they should be feeling all the muscles of the front thigh right here, maybe even a little stretch in the back of the leg and the hamstrings. So alternating is the first progression. To make it just a little more difficult, you can have your students in the seated position do all of their repetitions on one side. So that is just going to place a little bit more load on the muscle and the stabilizing muscles because he's not alternating and getting that little break. The other thing that will happen here is as they lift, you may see your students round and go into that gorilla stance, that posture. Make sure you remind them we need their chest up, lengthened spine, shoulders relaxed. This is progression number 1 from the chair. Progression 2 is taking your students up to a stagger stance with light chair support. So Mark's standing by his chair. He is holding on to that chair. He's going to take his outside leg and he's going to lift, lengthen, and then tap back. So he's going to lift, straighten out, bend, and just do a little tap down. Now here, if your students lift their knees up too far, their hips are going to go in all which way, right? All which directions. So we want the hips staying level, keeping their pelvis in neutral. So some of your students may need to do just a small lift up right here. Some may be able to lift up a little higher. But the highest you should cue is where their knee comes just a little bit underneath the hips. So we want to keep the knee underneath that hip joint. So right now, Mark is doing all of his repetitions on one side, and because he's using chair support, what he would do is walk around to the other side of the chair and then do the other outside leg. The other added bonus here to progress your students is you can hold on to the back of that chair, or you can start to take it to a light fingertip hold. Now we have more of a balance component entering. And Mark's inside leg, your student's inside leg, is going to be doing so much work to stabilize and control the core. And remember, the core is all of those muscles from the tops of the thighs below the chest. So he's going to be feeling his hips, his glutes, all kinds of muscles. Thank you, Mark. Once your students have really good balance, so they are now at that high-end experience or excel level, they can freestand, they can balance on one leg, Darcy's going to demonstrate the next progression. So what she's going to do, she's going to stand tall, and your students, they can have their hands at their sides, on their hips, whatever they feel comfortable with. She's going to lift her knee, straighten her leg, and then bend, and then tap back down. So she's doing this freestanding. And the big thing here, even if your students are advanced, is keeping those hips level. So we don't want to see the hip hike, and that's what you're going to see is the hip hike. Level hips. You're going to see how that throws the entire body off, and your students could potentially fall because they're going to become unbalanced. So she could take her knee a little bit lower.
I'm going to switch legs.
Sure. And that same concept applies here. Alternating the sides gives the other side a little break. To progress it, you do more repetitions on the same side. Thank you, Darcy. That is leg extensions.